Hello, I'm Dr. Emily Johnson, and I'm going to tell you one of the most surprising and dramatic stories I've experienced in my 20 years as a doctor. That day started like any other. I was at the hospital, caught up in my routine of consultations and procedures, when my phone rang. Michael's name flashed on the screen, and instantly my heart raced. He never called during my shift unless it was urgent. "Emily, I'm at the hospital," he said, his voice weak and breathless. "I'm not feeling well. I think it's serious." I dropped everything and rushed to the emergency room. When I arrived, I found Michael lying on a stretcher, pale and sweating. Nurse Claire was by his side, trying to help him. "Michael, I'm here," I murmured, holding his trembling hand. "Emily." "I don't know what's happening," he whispered, his frightened eyes meeting mine. "We'll figure it out, sweetheart. Stay calm," I replied, trying to control the panic threatening to overwhelm me. That's when Dr. Charles Whitman, the new hospital director, entered the room. Known for his authoritative manner and strict changes since his arrival. "Dr. Johnson, we need to talk about your husband's condition," Whitman said bluntly. "He's in critical condition. We need to conduct a series of tests immediately." I nodded, trying not to let my despair show. As the medical team swiftly moved around Michael, I found myself torn between my roles as a wife and a doctor. I needed to stay calm and objective, although everything inside me wanted to scream and cry. Hours passed in a blur of tests and procedures. Michael was taken to the ICU, where he would be closely monitored. I knew the situation was grave, but I couldn't abandon my other patients. That was the harsh reality of my profession. During a break, I went to Whitman's office. I needed to discuss the recent changes at the hospital that were making the work environment unbearable. "Dr. Whitman, we need to talk," I began, trying to maintain composure. "These new policies are compromising the quality of patient care. We're all overwhelmed and demotivated." He looked at me coldly, adjusting his glasses with calculated precision. "Dr. Johnson, I understand your concerns, but these changes are necessary to improve hospital efficiency. We need to cut costs and increase productivity. But at what cost?" I retorted, anger growing inside me. "We're dealing with human lives, not just numbers on a spreadsheet." Whitman stared at me for a moment before responding. "I suggest you focus on your work and leave the administration to me. Your husband is receiving the best possible treatment, and that's what matters right now." I left the office feeling frustrated and powerless. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, but I couldn't afford to lose focus. I returned to the ICU and found Michael in an even worse state than before. His vital signs were plummeting, and the medical team struggled to stabilize him. "Emily," he whispered, barely able to open his eyes. "I love you." "I love you too, Michael. Stay with me, please," I pleaded, tears streaming down my face. That night was one of the hardest moments of my life. I stayed by Michael's side, holding his hand, as the monitors beeped incessantly. With every passing minute, I felt hope slipping through my fingers. "He's strong, Emily," Claire said, trying to comfort me. "We'll do everything we can." I nodded, though uncertainty consumed me. I needed to find a solution, a way to save Michael and handle the chaos at the hospital. But in that moment, all I could do was wait and pray that he would pull through. The nights in the hospital blurred into days. I found myself trapped in an exhausting routine, torn between my role as a doctor and the anguish of being a wife. It was impossible to describe the pain of seeing Michael there, motionless, while the medical team fought to stabilize him. Sitting beside his bed, holding his cold hand, I wondered how abruptly our lives had changed. The hours dragged on. The light from the cardiac monitor was the only thing breaking the darkness of the room. I couldn't close my eyes, fearing that if I dozed off, Michael might need me and I wouldn't be there. "Emily, you need to rest," Nurse Carla, a longtime friend and colleague, said as she entered the room with a concerned look. "You won't be any good to anyone if you keep this up." "I can't, Carla." What if something happens to him while I'm not here? I replied, trying to hide the desperation in my voice. The team is doing everything they can. You need to trust them and also take care of yourself, Carla insisted, placing her hand on my shoulder. The days blurred into a whirlwind of tests, consultations, and heated discussions with Dr. Whitman. With each new directive he implemented, the hospital environment grew more tense. The new cost-cutting policies directly impacted the quality of patient care, and I couldn't stay silent about it. Dr. Whitman, we need to talk, I said, barging my way into his office after yet another frustrating meeting. Emily, I'm busy. Can it wait? He replied dismissively. No, it can't. The changes you're making are hurting patients and the medical staff. I can't accept this, I asserted firmly. He sighed, removing his glasses and rubbing his temples. Emily, these decisions are necessary to keep the hospital running. We need to cut costs. But at what cost, Charles? We're talking about lives here, not just numbers on a spreadsheet. I retorted, my voice rising with frustration. Whitman remained silent for a moment before responding. I understand your concern, but my responsibility lies with the hospital's financial viability. I left his office more determined than ever to fight against those changes. I found support among my colleagues, who were also dissatisfied with the new administration. Together, we began planning ways to confront Whitman and try to reverse some of his decisions. But then, the worst happened. Michael slipped into a coma. The news hit me like an avalanche, crushing any remaining hope I had. I was faced with the possibility of having to withdraw life support, something I never imagined having to consider. Emily, we need to discuss our options, Dr. Anderson, one of the doctors overseeing Michael's case, said with a grave look. I can't do this, I replied, tears streaming down my face. He could still wake up. I know he can. I understand your pain, but we need to be realistic. His condition is critical, and the chances of recovery are minimal. Desperate, I turned to the only thing that could offer me some solace, faith. I knelt beside Michael's bed and prayed like never before. I begged God for a miracle, for a sign, anything that could give me hope. Please, God, don't take him from me. I need him. I don't know what to do without him, I whispered between sobs, feeling lost and powerless. The days that followed were even more difficult, but faith and the support of my colleagues gave me the strength to carry on. Despite all the hardships, I wasn't willing to give up. Michael was my life, and I would do anything to bring him back. The early morning was cold and silent when the hospital alarm blared, shattering the illusory peace of the night. I was by Michael's side, holding his inert hand, when I was urgently called to the emergency ward. An outbreak of a contagious disease had hit the hospital, putting all professionals and patients at risk. Emily, we need you on the front lines, Nurse Clara said urgently, her voice filled with urgency. We have multiple patients coming in with severe symptoms. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. I couldn't let my personal anguish interfere with my duty. I'm coming right away, I replied reluctantly letting go of Michael's hand. Keep me informed of any changes in his condition. Upon arriving at the emergency ward, I was greeted by a chaotic scene. Patients were being brought in on stretchers, coughing and running high fevers. The medical team was overwhelmed, and panic was palpable. We need to establish triage immediately, I ordered, trying to organize the chaos. Separate the most critical cases and isolate them. We need to prevent further spread. As I coordinated efforts to contain the outbreak, tensions between Dr. Whitman and me reached a critical point. He appeared with his rigid posture and severe gaze, questioning my decisions. Dr. Johnson, we need to prioritize the limited resources we have, he said, crossing his arms. We can't treat every patient with the same intensity. With all due respect, Dr. Whitman, we're talking about human lives, I retorted, frustration evident in my voice. We can't afford to let anyone go without proper care. We need more resources, not fewer. Emily, be realistic, he insisted. We're in the middle of an outbreak. We need to be practical. Being practical doesn't mean being inhumane, I replied, anger simmering inside me. If we can't save everyone, we'll do everything we can to save as many as possible. And that means giving our best. Our discussion was interrupted by Clara, who rushed in with a distressed expression. Emily, we need you in the ICU. We have 2 patients in critical condition. I hurried to the ICU, where I found patients struggling to breathe, their lives hanging by a thread. We did everything we could to stabilize them, but unfortunately, not everyone survived. The loss of these patients shook my faith and determination deeply. I felt powerless, questioning if I was doing enough. During a brief break, I sat in the corridor, trying to catch my breath. It was then that I saw something that reignited my hope. Michael, still in a coma, showed slight signs of improvement. His hands moved faintly, and his vital signs were more stable. Clara, come see this, I called out, my voice trembling with emotion. He's responding. Clara rushed over and looked at the monitors. It's true, Emily. He's getting better. That small improvement in Michael was like a ray of light in the darkness. It reignited my hope and gave me strength to keep fighting. I returned to the front line, more determined than ever to confront the outbreak and save as many lives as possible. The following days were a constant battle. The tension between Whitman and me persisted, but gradually, he began to realize the importance of our actions. Emily, we're going to need a better plan for allocating resources, he said one day, with a less combative tone. Do you have any suggestions? Yes, Dr. Whitman, I replied, seizing the opportunity. We can reorganize teams and prioritize the use of critical equipment. We also need more psychological support for the staff. We're all at our breaking point. He nodded, surprising me with his change in attitude. Let's do that. And, Emily, thank you for not giving up. At that moment, I realized that despite all the difficulties, change was happening. My faith and determination were finally making a difference, not just for the patients but for the entire hospital. And with Michael showing signs of recovery, I felt that redemption was within our reach. And so, amidst the chaos and pain, I found the strength to move forward, knowing that each small victory was a step toward hope and overcoming. Michael began responding to treatments. At first, the changes were subtle, a slight improvement in breathing, a small increase in heart rate. Each sign was a ray of hope that illuminated my heart. I clung to these moments like a sailor clings to a plank in the midst of a storm. The medical team also noticed the improvement, bringing a sigh of relief to all of us. One morning, as I reviewed exams and reports by Michael's bedside, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Dr. Anderson, a longtime colleague and friend. Emily, he's responding. We don't know what the future holds, but this is a good sign, he said with an encouraging smile. Thank you, Anderson. Sometimes I feel like I'm losing faith, but these little signs give me strength to carry on, I replied, trying to hold back tears. While I focused on Michael, Dr. Whitman watched from afar. I knew he was questioning his administrative decisions, but I didn't yet know to what extent it affected him. He had always been difficult to read, with an impenetrable facade. Yet, I sensed a subtle change in his posture and gaze. The days that followed were exhausting. I continued to fight on the front lines against the outbreak, coordinating efforts to treat the infected while closely monitoring Michael's progress. The medical team, inspired by my dedication, came together in a way I had never seen before. Everyone was determined to overcome the crisis, which gave us renewed strength. One day, while I was in the meeting room organizing the next steps of treatment, Dr. Whitman entered. Emily, can we talk? He asked, his tone softer than usual. I nodded and followed him to his office. It was a cold environment, with white walls and few decorations, reflecting Whitman's meticulous personality. I want you to know that I've been observing your dedication and tireless efforts. I admit that perhaps I've been hasty in some decisions, he began, visibly uncomfortable. Dr. Whitman, all I've ever wanted was to provide the best possible care to our patients. The changes you've implemented make that difficult, I replied, trying to remain calm. He sighed. I understand. That's why I'm calling for a meeting to discuss potential changes to the hospital policies. We need to strike a balance between efficient management and compassionate care. That was the first time I saw Whitman truly open to dialogue. I left his office cautiously optimistic, knowing there was still a long way to go. In the meeting, the entire medical team came together to discuss the new policies. It was a tense atmosphere, but there was a sense of hope in the air. Everyone contributed their ideas, and for the first time, I felt like we were moving in the right direction. During a break, I met with Dr. Sophia, one of the hospital's senior physicians. Emily, your leadership and courage have inspired all of us. We're in this together, and we'll overcome this crisis, she said, holding my hand. Sophia, I don't know what I would do without you all by my side. This has shown me that even in the midst of chaos, unity and faith can guide us, I replied, feeling a comforting warmth in my chest. As the meeting continued, a nurse rushed up to me. Dr. Emily, Michael is waking up, she exclaimed, her eyes shining. I hurried to Michael's room, my heart racing. When I entered, I saw his eyes half open, trying to focus. Michael, I'm here, I whispered, holding his hand. He gently squeezed my hand and, with effort, whispered, Emily. Tears streamed uncontrollably down my face. I'm here, my love. We're in this together, I said, feeling a wave of relief and hope. In that moment, I realized the struggle had not been in vain. Michael was coming back to me, and the hospital team was stronger and more united than ever. Faith, courage, and unity had guided us through the storm. News of Michael's recovery spread quickly throughout the hospital, bringing a wave of hope and joy to everyone. Fellow doctors and nurses came to his room to witness the miracle with their own eyes. Still processing the euphoria of the moment, Dr. Whitman walked into the room, visibly emotional. Emily, I don't even know where to begin, he said, his voice carrying a sincerity I had never seen before. Seeing what you've done for Michael and for this hospital has made me realize many things. I looked at him, surprised. Dr. Whitman, I just did what anyone would do for someone they love. But you did more than that, he insisted. You led this hospital in a crisis, prioritized patients' lives above all, and never lost faith even when everything seemed to be falling apart. There was a meaningful silence between us. Because of this, I've decided to review the hospital's policies. We need more compassion and ethics in our work. From now on, we'll prioritize our patients' well-being above all else. My heart swelled with gratitude. Thank you, Dr. Whitman. This means so much to all of us. That afternoon, while by Michael's side, a familiar figure entered the room. James? I said, surprised to see my former colleague, Dr. James Carter. Emily, it's so good to see you, he said, embracing me. I heard about Michael and came as quickly as I could. I have something important to tell you. We sat down, and he began to explain. I've been studying Michael's case extensively and found that his illness was caused by a previous medical error, a misdiagnosis that went unnoticed by all of us. I've also discovered a new treatment approach that was crucial to his recovery. I was astonished. Are you saying Michael's illness could have been prevented? Yes, but I'm also saying that the new approach you adopted was what saved his life. You did everything right, Emily. James's words brought a mix of relief and weight. Knowing an old mistake nearly cost Michael his life was painful, but at the same time, the confirmation that our recent actions were correct brought a sense of justice. In the days that followed, Michael continued to improve. Every small step forward was celebrated with joy and gratitude. With more humane and compassionate policies in place, the hospital began to thrive again. The medical team was more united than ever, and the atmosphere of hope and renewal was tangible. One evening, sitting in the hospital garden, Michael held my hand. "Emily, we've been through so much, but we made it. And all because of your strength and determination." I looked into his eyes, feeling a deep peace. "I didn't do this alone, Michael. It was everyone's unity, faith, and courage that brought us here." And there, under the starry sky, I realized that true redemption comes not only from overcoming challenges but from finding strength in unity, faith, and shared courage. Our journey was far from over, but we were ready to face anything, together. Thank you so much for watching my story. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like our video and subscribe to our channel. Have a great day.